Okay, we are going to our next panel. Are you ready for panel number 5? I hope so. What are we talking about when we are improving accessibility through the European Accessibility Act in telecom services, audio-visual media services, and emergency numbers? It's going to be moderated by design advisor with the Center for Excellence in Universal Design at the National Disability Authority in Ireland, Donald Fitzpatrick. I hope I am pronouncing your name good. I did? Thank you.
1-1. There we go. We have power and we have a microphone. Thank you very much. Yes, you did pronounce my name correctly. I want to clarify for the record, my name is categorically, absolutely, 100% not Donald. So it's great to be here. Welcome everybody to this panel. A very, very important topic, the area of telecoms, audiovisual media services, and for the next wee while, we're going to take you through a discussion about this hugely, hugely important topic. My name, as I said, is Donald Fitzpatrick, and I'm going to moderate. I'm delighted to be joined by some fantastic experts. But if I can take a couple of moments just to set the scene very, very quickly. You didn't come here to hear me, you came to hear my fantastic colleagues here. But let's go back to 1876. If you were around in 1876 and you're around now, you're doing very well, congratulations. And in 1876, we had the invention that I think changed the world. It was the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell. If we jump forward to the 1920s, we had the emergence of the television. In 1982, the television and the telephone converged when a small alien said, "E.T. phone home." We've had rock anthems and now we have iconic movies. Let me jump you forward to the early 2000s. In the early 2000s, the SMS revolution, the text revolution, had really started. And for a lot of us, myself as a blind person included, we were excluded. We couldn't send text messages, we couldn't receive text messages. If a text message came in, you had to get a sighted friend to read it, and quite frankly, hope it wasn't private. Then, one of the unsung heroes, one of the great names who is not often talked about in accessibility history came along, a man named Thorsten Brandt, who took a Nokia communicator with the Symbian operating system and made it accessible. Jump forward a few years, we had the smartphones and the revolution in accessibility that they caused. For people with disabilities, mobile technology became a feature of our lives. We now get to 2025 and we have the European Accessibility Act, which seeks to regulate this particular sector. We are aiming for a world of total conversation, where everybody, irrespective of disability, can communicate. We are looking, as Irish law says, for a universally designed sector where everybody, irrespective of age, size, ability, or disability, can actually communicate, can watch movies, can engage in society. We are looking for a world where barriers are reduced. And telecoms and audiovisual media services will play a huge part in that going forward. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by my panel, who come from a variety of sectors. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to invite them all to introduce themselves and to give a perspective on what they see as the most important aspects of accessibility from their perspective and that of their organizations. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce you to the panel. I haven't had a chance, as I came on stage, to figure out where everybody is sitting. We will figure that out as I hear the voices. Because for those of you who can't see, I'm actually sitting up here with a screen reader in one ear and trying to listen to the panel in the other. So, I am delighted to win to first Benoit Bivier, who is the Public Affairs Director of the European Emergency Number Association. Sorry, Benoit. who I'm very delighted to say has joined us at the last minute. We appreciate you doing so. Benoit, would you like to introduce yourself and your organisation and give us some opening remarks? Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. My pleasure to be here today. I'm here to replace my colleague, Cristina Lumbreras, who was initially supposed to be in that panel. I'm a Public Affairs Director at the European Emergency Number Association. So we're an NGO that defends the rights of citizens and defend their rights to benefit from high-quality emergency services, especially when it comes to calling the emergency services. And I will echo what you said, Donald, about the importance of accessibility in telecommunications in general, but we have to think that when it's about an emergency call, ensuring accessibility for people with disabilities, it's a matter of life and death. Like, everyone should have the right to get help in an emergency in a way that that works for them. So equal access is really essential for that element. In the European Accessibility Act, we speak about real-time text and total conversation. They are key to ensure equal access to communication, and because they combine voice, text, and video in one service. So anyone can reach the emergency services in the way that works best for them. So this is what we really call accessibility. But to make this happen, everyone in the process must be ready. There's different elements. There's the people who should know about these technologies and should know about how to use them, especially. Then you need the devices to be compatible also with the technologies. You need the mobile network operators to support these technologies. And you need the emergency call centers for the case of emergency communication, what we call PSAP, Public Safety Answering Points. They are those who answer the emergency communications. They must be ready also to process the technology, to receive the communication, and provide the best support possible. And actually, this is quite relevant because I often say that technology is one thing, but then you should also know how to use that technology. That's why it's very important also to ensure some proper training in the PSAPs, in the emergency call centers, so that the call takers, they can also know how to respond to an emergency also for people with disabilities, using the right tone, understanding the severity of an emergency when it's written. Also, it's quite important. And also, they need to learn also how to answer with empathy with the communication tool that is chosen. Another important field of work is to ensure interoperability across borders. There's 112, it's a great example that we have one number that anyone can reach everywhere in the European Union, but we should also make sure that 112 and the concept of 112 is also applicable for anyone, and especially for people with disabilities. So that means that the means that we have for people with disability, they should also work for people traveling to other member states. So a lot of work should also be done on that. And also an important element is to ensure not only that emergency communications are accessible, but also public warning. When the authorities have to warn us about a disaster around us, we need to make sure that people with disabilities can also receive the alert and understand the alert and the safety instructions that come with it. So these are important elements to work on.
Thank you very much, Benoit, for those interesting remarks. Again, we're back to a topic which raised its head at the banking event, which happened here in Brussels on Tuesday, multimodality. You know, ensuring that information is delivered across multiple channels. I would now like to introduce Frankie Piqueron, who is Director of the European Union of the Deaf.
Thank you. Thank you. Wait. Thank you. Microphone working? Yeah. Thank you. I'm a sign language user, so you hear the voice of my sign language interpreter, and thanks for accessibilizing this event for me. I represent the European Union of the Deaf, an umbrella organization, the only one on the European level, representing deaf people from 31 countries, the 27 EU countries, plus the EAA, plus Norway and Iceland and Switzerland, representing over 1 million sign language users in the EU. We always urge people to remember that there's 29 different sign languages within the EU. And we have collected life experiences from all those 31 countries, and a few of those outcomes I'd like to share with you. The EUD made its own report based on the lived experience of deaf people in the EU. Addressing the EEA first. It's the start of the work, not the end of the road. Some background information. Deaf sign language users have their own and the only 100% accessible way of accessing information and expressing themselves. And still many service providers, telecoms, do not provide access in national sign languages. Many assume that written information will be sufficient, but it's not. It's not fully accessible for a large part of the deaf community. There's quite a number of illiterate people because of the lack of access to education or a lack of comfort with written language. There's several reasons which lead us to believe that if there is spoken language access, that we should have access to the same information in a national sign language. And that will be the start of accessibility. And there will be reasonable accommodation. And text only is not reasonable accommodation, is not fully accessible. Telecom providers providing consumer services which are not accessible for sign language users. Some telecoms operators are not accessible in sign language. You can only ask for support through spoken language in a phone line. Suppose you're trying to unblock a SIM card and you can't do that in a written language or in sign language. If you're stuck in an emergency situation and you can't access your phone operator, that's a problem. So the EUD has produced 3 different reports, and feel free to contact us to provide you access to those reports, where you can read more in depth about the information just shared. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those insightful remarks. We're now going to go online because I'm delighted that we are joined by Professor Ana Matamala from the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. Anna, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I hope so.
Yes,
well,
you're coming up loud and clear. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. It's my pleasure to join you online. I'm Ana Matamala, Professor of Translation at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. I'm a member of Transmedia Catalonia Research Group, and also I'm the director of the AccessCat network. Behind me, the logo. And we specialize in media accessibility research. Audiovisual media are everywhere. I mean, we use it to entertain ourselves, to inform ourselves. So it's really important that it is accessible. Our experience is more focused on user-centric research. So we've done a lot of research on different access services, audio description, audio subtitling, easy to understand language more recently. We've been involved in standardization and also in quite a few knowledge transfer activities. So I would like to highlight the importance of research, the importance of training. Susanna Laurin was mentioning this this morning, the importance of collaboration. And well, Alejandro this morning suggested that we join the panels with a song. So I'm not going to sing, I'm just going to mention 2 songs. The first song, which give, I think, my perspective on the topic. The first song is Celebration by Kool and the Gang. So let's celebrate and have a good time that we have the act in place. But I would like also to join you with another song, a song in Catalan, to acknowledge also diversity, which is Agafant l'horitzó by Charango, which translates into grabbing the horizon, because it's a song, a very festive song about hope, about social justice, about rebellion, which at the beginning says, we no longer want the breadcrumbs, we want the whole loaf, the whole bread loaf. So let's celebrate, we are happy, but let's aim for more. Thank you. I will talk more later. I think that's a good start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. We're coming back into the room now, and I'm delighted to introduce Joanna Shehu, who is a policy manager with Connect Europe. Joanna, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Donald, and thank you to AccessibleEU for inviting Connect Europe today. Connect Europe represents the leading telecommunication providers, and we have around 34 members around Europe, connecting over 270 million Europeans and also businesses with high quality internet, and thanks to networks such as fiber and 5G. Some of our members are also providers of audiovisual media services, along with the devices also that is needed to access them. So, as a representative of a telecom industry and also as a European, I think that it's important to say that our members are trying to always put citizens first when it comes to data protection, but also child protection and access to their services. And in Europe, we have a strong regulatory framework that provides for functional equivalence in communication for users. And as Frankie mentioned, it's true that it's only the beginning. Now it's also need to be implemented. It takes dialogues between the different stakeholders because there are many different stakeholders, and also innovation and technological solution. And our members are also working closely with the different partners to work on the devices and services. In terms of telecom services, this means more technically network upgrades with the implementation of AVMS, but also end-user equipment needs to be ready, and Benoit referred to that as well. And we need to also be including accessibility compliance throughout our operations. And we've made progress on a wide range of areas, thanks to, in part, ongoing efforts that started before this regulatory framework was in place. And at the same time, what we hear from our members is that the European Accessibility Act and its annexes and standards has provided some guidance, valuable guidance, helping them to understand better what were the needs and also how to best address them. And I think this was also helpful that throughout this journey we had some discussion with the different associations and also with the individuals and persons with disabilities, and it was incredibly helpful. So, and I think still some important work needs to be done in that regard.
Thank you very much, Joanna. And last but by no means least, I'm delighted to introduce again online Andreas Rover, who is Head of the Enforcement Sector with DG Connect at the European Commission. Andreas, you're very welcome today.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. That's great. So thanks a lot for inviting me to this. I think I have already some quite good messages to some of the things which have been raised by the panelists. So for Benoit, we do regular reports on the implementation of 112, where accessibility is one of the aspects, and I can provide some of the details later. For Frankie, the sign language interpretation is one of the features which can be imposed by member states in the area of must carry. So for radio and TV channels, which provide some general interest content, so that is an important thing. Then for Anna, I have to say that I fully support the musical aspects which you have raised, and your Spanish colleague before on the previous panel as well. So I think I have nothing to add on that. And then for Xoama, that the EEC is already there, so this is not something which is still in kind of an implementation phase. This has been adopted already in 2018 and had to be implemented by member states in 2020, and it is now really transposed by all the member states. So that is legislation and end-user rights in particular, but also universal service provisions which are already there and which help any end users with disabilities. So this, I think, is very much, in short, what I would focus on today. So 2 points. First, the provisions of the EECC, so of the Code on Electronic Communications. So that is legislation which is already there. And second, the reports on the implementation of 112. And then also to add that we have entered into a revision of the EECC. So there will be proposals which we intend to make by the end of the year in the area of under the label of the Digital Networks Act, into which the EECC provisions will probably be consolidated into this, with a view to update them and also to simplify the rules so that all this is more easily compatible with the EEA, with the EAA, and so that we have kind of a comprehensive and framework which is coherent. So that would be just my introductory remarks. Many thanks.
Thank you indeed, Andreas. That's really interesting, and some very interesting topics that you raised there, which hopefully we'll get a chance to come back to later in this discussion. We're now moving to some questions, and if I can start with you, Frankie, what positive impact will increasing the accessibility of emergency call answering services have, not only for people with disabilities, but for everyone?
Well, first of all, you might save lives. And not just disabled people's lives. Disabled people might be witnessing and may have a need to call emergency service because they see an accident happen. So disabled people might be actually the savers of other people's lives. In terms of accessibility of 112 services, some of you may not be familiar with the term total conversation. It means access through video, real-time text, RTT, and voice. 3 channels which can be used in the same call. This would have important added values for us, deaf people, sign language users. In emergency situations, SMS is not good enough. People may not have the physical capacity to type SMS messages, so we would be able to express ourselves in sign language. So, just like hearing people that might lose the ability to type at a certain moment. If you witness a car crash and you realize your jaw is broken and you can't do speech, total conversation would enable you to switch to either text or turn on the video, make it visible. So the operators can actually see that there's somebody calling who can't speak at this moment. So it really can benefit the whole population. No, it's a small design trick, but it can benefit the whole population. Not only end users, but also for the PSAPs. And why couldn't PSAPs also hire people with disabilities to directly interact with callers in sign language or one of the other 2 channels, voice or text? So I'll leave it at this for now. Back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much. And Benoit, from your perspective on this, what benefits do you see, again, not just for people with disabilities, but for everybody?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'll speak as just a citizen. I want to live in an inclusive society that doesn't leave anyone behind. So that's also, as a citizen, the philosophy of it. But when it comes to emergency communications, I think anyone can also benefit from total conversation, and well, that includes real-time text. For instance, when it comes to video can already help the call takers to better assess the nature and the gravity of an emergency situation. They can better assess the danger, the type of injury, etc. So this can provide a lot of information extra to the emergency call taker. And then when it comes to texting also, that some people, as Frankie just described, that sometimes are in a situation where they cannot speak. You have to think that when you have to contact the emergency services, sometimes you're really in a situation of a shock, where just speaking may not be the easiest. You may not feel also confident with the language, etc. And then you have also some, I guess, also the younger generation that also prefer to text than to speak in general. So by providing actually more channels to contact the emergency services, we actually accommodate also everyone's needs, not only for people with disabilities, but for everyone in general, and also we can provide more information to the emergency services, so everybody benefits from it.
Thank you. And Joanna, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would totally agree with what has been said. In terms of what it means when we talk about networks, it means also that we need to have the next generation emergency services, so going to new networks, and the PSAPs needs also to upgrade their services and to rely on this kind of technologies, which is IP-based communication. And on top of better accessibility to have everybody being safe, and we also have other elements such as better information, color location, health data that can be shared, and sensor feeds as well. And other elements, for example, improving the voice if necessary, or rerouting the calls in case of failures. So if we look at other technology features, it can also help also being more interoperable with other technologies, etc. So only benefits.
Thank you. Anna, from your perspective, and changing the conversation slightly, improvements to availability of accessible audio visual media services, how do you see that benefiting both people with disabilities and those who don't identify as living with a disability?
I think that we all need access to audiovisual media. We use this audiovisual media to access the news, but also to enjoy ourselves with the movies. And I think there are two different perspectives. One thing is the actual access services within those content. Those content need to be made accessible, but also the access to the audiovisual media, the access to the services, knowing that the services exist and that you can access them easily. So in this regard, I think the European Accessibility Act is a major achievement, because it covers this access to the audiovisual media services. It covers consumer terminal equipments, websites, apps, etc., the accessible EPGs, but it also interacts in a way, I would say, with the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, which says that the media are to be made continuously and progressively more accessible. So in that way, as I was saying at the beginning, I'm happy to celebrate the European Accessibility Act. This is the whole point of this event, I would say. We've made progress, but we don't want the breadcrumbs. We want the whole loaf, as I was saying. So I think I would like to make maybe a couple of points. We see more subtitles, but we are still not there. And there's still many access services that are not present. For instance, audio description, audio subtitles, sign language interpreting, but also, why not, easy to understand language. So I think, for instance, I'm involved now in a project, which is the ENACT project, in which we focus on easy to understand news. So I think we still have a lot of work to do in that regard, not only in terms of the access services, but also a second point I would like to make is about the languages. So in English, there may be quite a lot, but when we select other languages, and language diversity is also very important, then we start finding more problems. A colleague of mine, Blanca Arias, Joshua Mezaga, and others did a research in which they found out that most of the audio descriptions available in streaming platforms, for instance, are in English. There's a reasonable percentage in Spanish, but then the other languages' presence is really low. So yes, let's celebrate, but let's aim at more.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, indeed, the languages one is very important. As somebody who comes from a country where we have a minority language in Europe, if I can remove my chair's hat for a moment, I would certainly echo that in terms of availability of accessible resources in certainly minority languages is also a significant barrier that we still have to overcome. If I can change topic, please, and come to yourself, Andreas. What, from your perspective, is the state of readiness across the member states in respect of implementation of the EA around either answering of emergency call answering services or indeed audio-visual media services, indeed any of the topics under discussion today?
Yes, I mean, I cannot speak about the EAA as this is not in my responsibility. As I said, I can speak a bit about the EECC, so what is relevant there in telecoms, and I think there are these, and this is, as I said, this is something which is already transposed, and these are rights which are already available to end users in the member states. So that is something which is already there, and I think what we really have established there is that we would have this established this principle of equivalence in access. So this is part of the end user rights, and that we have also this general philosophy that the market may not always provide all the services which are necessary. So there is this that those needs which are not satisfactorily met by the market, that this can be covered by universal service obligations. So that are, I think, the main principles which we have, apart from some other details which I leave out for in the interest of brevity of time. So on the part of affordability of services, so where no affordable services are made available in the market, there is this universal service regime, and there member states have to ensure that support is provided, and especially with regard to terminal equipment and specific equipment and specific services that enhance equivalent access, including the necessary total conversation services. So this is already covered, and relay services that they are available and affordable. So these mechanisms are in place, and I think this is already one of the really relevant achievements of the EECC, which are already there. So that is quite an achievement. And then, as regards on the reporting on where we stand, I already said that we are reporting especially on the 112. So that is, there we have regular reports on the effectiveness on the implementation of the single European emergency number 112, and there is a specific chapter on accessibility, and there we report on there's a specific chapter on access to emergency services for end users with disabilities, and there we report about what member states have deployed, and they have really deployed a broad range of accessibility solutions dedicated to such end users. And just to comment on one of the remarks of one of the other panelists, of course, this is always good if such like texting is available also to broader audiences or populations of end users. The only thing which has shown challenges in the implementation here is that, of course, such audiences and such user groups are then much broader if it is the general public instead of those with instead of end users with disabilities, and this can cause capacity issues when you implement certain solutions which were originally just designed for end users with disabilities only. So this, of course, can be overcome in the process, but it had, for example, the access to some of the apps in this respect had to be limited to really end users with disabilities for practical reasons, because otherwise, at least the solution which had been originally implemented in some of the member states would simply be overloaded and then could not anymore function in practice. So that was one of the challenges which we faced in the implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Frankie, if I can come to you on this, what are you experiencing from across Europe about implementation around any of these topics in member states?
I feel that the EAA, and in terms of the implementation, some countries have already said they won't implement it until June 2027 for 112 emergency service access. So the EUD report, based on information from our members, there are some countries where the 112 access is still limited to SMS or fax even. And that's accessibility? No, it's not. Can you imagine how many people still have faxes in 2025? EAA should be celebrated, right? At the same time, there are many countries where there's limited capacity. Relay services are not accessible 24/7 in many countries. So there's accessibility, but only from 9 to 5 working hours. If you have an emergency outside that, wait till the next working day. VRS, video relay services, also available limited times or not available at all. And we want this access in sign language for 24/7. And we need to train the PSAPs. And like Benoit said, the aim of for 112 services is to be equally accessible for all. And some countries have tried to solve this accessibility issue by having a specific app. But if I'm a Danish person and want to drive to Croatia, I may have to download 4 different apps. The Danish one, the German one, and the Belgian one, or depending on how you drive. Imagine taking a longer trip through Europe. Apps often won't work in your own country. Some apps need, for some apps, in order to download them, you need to pre-register. And the registration process may not be accessible. So summarizing it, I'll leave it at this. I try to be very brief, and feel free to come up to me afterwards for more detailed info. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Some really interesting challenges there, particularly around the downloading of apps and the pre-registration process and its inaccessibility. With the permission of other 2 colleagues on this, I'm going to move on to the next question, because a topic that has cropped up quite a bit recently is the topic of standards. And if I can go to you, please, the importance of standards around the interoperability of content, AVMS content, hugely important. What are your views on the importance of standards? How will they help move this agenda forward, particularly around delivery of this type of content at scale?
Yes, I think, well, I've been involved in standardization for a long time now, but from the human factors perspective, I'm not a technical expert, let's put it this way, but I think standards are fundamental to support the Act. They can support requirements on, for instance, how to select the services. This is very important, that users can personalize, that can control, that can select. There has to be an easy way to select the access services. But also there are other issues, such as synchronization of access services. If an access service is there but is not well synchronized, if the transmission has not a good quality, if it is not accurate in this display, we have a problem, because we will not be able to access the accessible content. We need alternatives and alternative access and presentation modes. And some of them are sometimes forgotten. For instance, spoken subtitles, there is a need for that. And, well, hopefully standards, and that's a bit more tricky, maybe can help us also identify how to provide understandable information. Sufyan was mentioning it this morning, if I recall correctly, that this issue of understandability that is also there in the Act. So yes, I think standards definitely can help us support. But we could go even further. We can go maybe even beyond the standards that are directly linked to the European Accessibility Act. And I sometimes wonder whether it would make sense, for instance, to try to develop quality standards related to access services. So we have ISO standards, ITU standards, national standards on access services. Should we work on European standards? That's just a question that maybe is worth discussing with colleagues in the future.
Thank you, and I think it's important to mention at this juncture the Design for All standard EN 17161, which is a process, a moment-driven standard, which of course focuses on inclusion of design for all, or as we call it in Ireland, universal design principles across organisations. So. Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. But coming back into the room and to our colleagues in the telecom sector, Joanna, if I can come to you, the importance of standards in terms of interoperability, in terms of delivery of these kind of solutions at scale. Do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I would echo what Anna just said. Standards are very important. I'm not myself also an expert on standards, but as an association, since we are representing different members in different member states, we are trying to be this forum where we can exchange on the application of a EAA, have a discussion with the European Commission, but also have those exchanges with ETSI and to discuss standards further, because they are the elements that can provide interoperability in the context of the implementation of a EAA. And what I hear from members is that there were some progress in that area, but there are some challenges that remain. For example, making their websites fully accessible was a learning journey. And they are working on some of those aspects still today. And if I take the example of the Netherlands, where we have a member from there, they managed to have a native RTT real-time text already available and functioning in their networks. But then when it comes to working in terms of interoperability with other operators and PSAPs, they still see this as a challenge, and it's a challenge shared by other Dutch telecom providers. Yes, so and I think when we talk about the EAA, the most important one of the most important standards we have been following is the HCN 301 549. And I think it should be updated and published in February 2026. And until then, we have to rely on the standards that currently in force.
Thank you. And Benoit, from your perspective on standards, what thoughts do you have?
I would echo what my peers have already said. I think we have to consider that. Well, RTT, it's a technology, but like there's a whole ecosystem behind it. There's the device, there's the network, and there's, when it comes to the emergency communication, the reception of the emergency communication, that they want to integrate it into the platform that the call takers use. So it's like 3 different things, and how do we make sure that they all, like all these elements of the ecosystem speak the same language in a way? Well, that language is the standard. So that's why the standard is needed, is to make sure that everything goes according to the plan in a seamless way. So that's the key to making sure that this technology is used and is consistent everywhere. And also on that very point, I will also refer to what Frankie has said about traveling to other countries. That is why also you need standards, is to have cross-border solutions to ensure cross-border interoperability, and this should really be thought in advance. And now we're talking about traveling to other member states, but we all also travel outside of Europe, and we also want to make sure that the technology is also the same in other parts of the world as well. So that is why standards are needed at a global level, actually.
Indeed, and Frankie, you mentioned this earlier, the issues of downloading multiple apps or having to pre-register. So standards and having cross-border access to accessible solutions, I'm sure, is extremely important.
Is that the question to?
Yeah, to Frankie, yeah, sorry.
Ah.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Thank you. I think the most panelists have covered most important things, like Benoit emphasized the importance also of interoperability and mobility. Yes, we need more standards. Not only on accessibility of emergency services, but also for the provision of support services. And this is very often, for support services, many times, the technology is there, but we also need the support services to be accessible in our national sign languages. So we're working with ETSI on a standard 0.975, which will be approved, or was to be approved, on June 2026. And for the rest, I think the rest of the panelists have said it all. Yes, we need standardization of future work, which will be the best way to push everybody to work in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving to a topic that's come up several times today in different contexts, and I know you have a particular interest in this one, which is all about training and upskilling people to, produce, accessible materials, answer calls in a way that is actually accessible for people with disabilities. Well, as an academic, I would welcome your thoughts around what needs to happen in order to facilitate the upskilling of people across in this domain.
Thank you for the question. Yes, training, education is very close to my heart. I work at the university, and I think that we need awareness and we need training at different levels. First of all, I think that in higher education, we need to train experts in accessibility. That's what we need to do. But at the same time, and for me, this is a very important issue, we need to include accessibility and design for all across curricula. This has been the aim of a project led by EDF, which is called Athena. We finished 3 days ago, this project, and what we tried to do in this project is come up with recommendations on how to integrate accessibility and design for all across curricula. So anyone, the same way that as we are doing now in many countries, for instance, with gender. Gender is part of the curricula. We should approach it from a broader perspective. We need diversity, we need accessibility, we need design for all, so that anyone knows about it, not necessarily being an expert, but they know about it, they are aware of it, and they know how to search for the access services or whatever is needed. Secondly, I think we need ad hoc training that responds very quickly to the needs of society, of the industry. Let me put very briefly an example. At the Autonomous University of Barcelona, we realized, because people approached us, that there was a need to have very short courses for very diverse profiles on accessibility. So we created 4 micro-credentials. They were launched 2 weeks ago, will start in September. dealing with accessible information and communication, dealing with easy to understand language, dealing with website accessibility, dealing with document accessibility. But at the same time, let me share maybe some concerns. I did something similar in the past. I did not reach the people and the course was not open. So this is a challenge we have, to reach the people who could be interested in those type of courses, which are more dynamic, less demanding than a formal course. And definitely, I would say a third thing to conclude this answer is that, of course, companies need in-house training. And in this regard, I think that the collaboration of industry and higher education institutions could definitely be helpful. So yes, we need a lot of awareness still and training.
Thank you. Benoit, the same question to you. What from your perspective, what training, upskilling needs to be made available in order to facilitate more accessible solutions?
That's a very good question. So first of all, it should start also with awareness campaigns to the citizens to explain the different technologies, how to use them, how they work, and how to communicate on that. And then on the other hand, on the other side of the communication, for the emergency call takers, you have to realize what the job of a call taker is. That it's not easy. You have to receive a communication and understand from it the nature of the emergency and the gravity of it, and then how to provide an emergency response to it. This, given the fact that the person who contacts the emergency services is not always familiar with, for instance, medical jargon, and also are often in a situation of panic where they can't think properly or describe properly what they are seeing or feeling, and sometimes they also react with emotions. So the role of the call taker is to process all that and to respond with empathy in a way that will also calm the person contacting the emergency services and provide the right response to it. So the training already looks at that, but when there are now more ways to contact the emergency services, the training should also be adapted to include these new ways, because, of course, a communication by voice is not the same as a communication by text, for instance. There's not the same language that is used, the same way of communicating, and so on. So the training should also reflect that. So I think there should be improvements or like enhancements in the way the trainings are made for the call takers, so as to reflect these new ways of communicating.
Indeed. And Frankie, I was struck by something you said earlier about the importance of ensuring that people with disabilities are employed, in content creation, in answering calls in the PSAPs. What training needs to happen in order to facilitate the employment of people with disabilities in these roles?
Thank you. I agree with previous panelists who said, yes, more training is needed. Upskilling is important. But it's not. There are other creative ways, by simply hiring people with lived experience of a disability, or people who have worked in the disability movement or in the disability field, and co-create training programs with people with disabilities. Why not hire people with disabilities as trainers, as lecturers? There's many possible ways to upskill and train people and to pass on this knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joanna, on the same question.
Yes, I would agree also with what has been said. Training is a very important element, and on the side of telecom providers, it starts first with access to our physical stores, and then having a person that is trained, especially trained to provide services for persons with disabilities. And when it comes to non-physical stores, when it comes to customer services, for example, we have Orange France, who is running a customer autonomy center specialized with services and expert advisors trained to work with and provide services for persons with disabilities. And I think that in terms of calls, we have also some, in terms of the total calls we received in this year, 4,000 were using accessible communication out of the 50,000 that they received, and using methods such as French Sign Language and cute speech and text. So, yeah. I think that's one of the examples that we have from one of our members. But of course, having also persons with disabilities hired in the workplace is also a key element, and this kind of programs are also still high in our members' priorities as well.
Indeed, and we're going to move to our last question now, and if I could just ask panel members just to be mindful of time, and this we're getting close. We're getting close to our end time. But Andreas, if I can come to you, please. You know, next generation technologies, like looking to the future, next generation technologies, artificial intelligence. What role do you see them playing in provision of accessible solutions?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think, I mean, AI is simply something which is across the board affecting all our communications, and also the way services are provided and offers are made and are designed for the needs of specific people. So yes, I see there is an important role for AI to be played, but also to control that it is used in a responsible way, and that it is not replacing maybe better services which are at the moment physically provided or electronically provided, but still by people. So it is important also to keep the necessary controls there, so to ensure that what we have in the end is really improvements by AI from an end user perspective. So that I think is really an important trend which we will see in all the areas, and I mean even in the area for us in particular with regard to complaint handling and complaint management. I mean these AI technologies can be extremely efficient to make something or make approaches or reasonings available which have been already made in previous cases, and make them available to handle complaints, new incoming complaints more adequately and faster. So this is really something which is on the horizon. It is not something which we are already using now, but it is really things which are tested and which will clearly have a good potential to provide significant improvements. So I think this is very positive, and it's also an area which will have repercussions on some of the issues which we have discussed, for example, standardization or so, which will also be helped by these technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we will stay online for this because Anna, in a conversation by email, I know you have some thoughts around things like bias around AI and next generation technologies. So your thoughts, please.
Yes, basically I would like to make maybe 3 comments to keep it short. First of all, I definitely think that automation, AI, is a powerful tool. It can have a key role, but we should work towards an ethical AI. We should be aware of bias. And also an important aspect is that we should take into account less resourced languages. My second comment would be that we need to understand technology. We need to understand technology and AI to better know when to use it. So for some cases, we may go for full automatizations, being aware of the risks that this implies, risks and advantages. In other cases, we will need a human in the loop. So we need an understanding of the technology, when to use it and how to use it. And my third and last comment would be that, yes, AI is the the buzzword these days, but we cannot forget other technological developments. For instance, we are doing a lot of work on virtual worlds in which AI is integrated. Let's keep an eye on those things so that they are also made accessible as they are developed.
Thank you. And coming back into the room, Joanna, next generation technologies and probably networks and things like that.
Yes, on networks, we are ourselves going through a transformation, so going through physical networks to more softwareization, and this is the case for 4G and 5G, and this will enable a lot of new applications. And I think that AI is one of them, so it will transform our digital experience and has a lot of potential. But my personal view on that is that we are not there yet, and especially when it comes to some use cases, of course, we need to have a user experience as well, together with human insight and some critical thinking as well. So yeah, we need to also keep monitoring when it comes to the policy angle, what will be the development at the EU level when it comes to ethical AI and biased AI as well.
And Benoit, from your organization's perspective, next generation technologies, AI, where do you see things going?
A lot of potential. So there's a current trend to migrate to newer generation of networks and benefit from all the capacities that AVMS provides. So it's a whole process called Next Generation 112, where it basically allows better routing to the most appropriate PSAP, and also the use of different technologies to communicate with emergency services, including real-time text or video. So that's part of the whole migration in Next Generation 112. As regards to the AI applications, the potential is huge. There's plenty of applications for emergency communications. Can start with real-time captioning and translation that is of course needed in many cases. And then we can also think about the possibility to use chatbots for sometimes less urgent situations. So somebody calling the emergency services or contacting the emergency services because they have more question than a real emergency. So chatbots can really be helpful in these situations. Also, there's development of avatars, for instance, that can also help. You can also have many more sensors and devices that can also be available and better detect emergency situations. So there's really plenty of cases. What I would just highlight is that emergency communications are still a very critical sector, so there always needs to be a human oversight over these AI applications at the moment, but we welcome new technologies, of course.
And if I may, I'll give the final word on this to Frankie. Where do you see the role of next generation technologies and AI? What role do you think they will play?
Thank you. I feel it has the potential. It can play an active role, but I want to thank the previous panelists for bringing up the lesser resource languages. Well, I mentioned 29 national sign languages in the EU. They're very under-resourced. And like Benoit said, there needs to be always a human in the chain. And within the deaf community, we have a couple of worries that if AI is seen as perceived to be able as a cheap solution to solve communication problems, and that we run the risk that our services are reduced to AI-based solutions. It can be an additional option, lovely, and the aim of AI use should be to offer more options, not to limit the number of options to AI-based solutions only. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. What a lovely way to close the panel discussion part of this afternoon's event. We have a little bit of time. If there are questions from the audience, this is where I will need help from some of the sighted people in the room. So if there are questions from the audience, we have time for one or two. Are there questions?
Yes, there are a few. Two questions.
Two, okay, we'll take 2 questions. We'll take the 2 questions then.
Hello, thank you all for your information today. I really appreciate it. I'm an educator, and I would like to know, you all mentioned training and how training is necessary. But I would say, I know you have to answer this quickly, but for each of your areas, like where does it really begin?
Who would like to go first? Frankie, would you like to go first on this one?
Let me look at the caption. Education. I'm not sure I fully understand the question that the captioners caught it, but education starts anywhere, everywhere.
I can. So I think we, at the European level, there are some digital decade targets for 2030, and skills is definitely an important one. So I would say from the telecom sector perspective, it starts with upskilling and reskilling our own employees. And for that, it means investment in this upskilling, and so that we are able to provide those training in different areas as well. And yeah, and it would mean also, I think the European Union has released skills pact. So they are going to look at this skills gap as well, and have some proposal on that side, and it would mean also public funding to support in that area.
Anna, I'm going to give you the opportunity to briefly comment on that particular question.
Well, I could talk for 10 hours, but I won't. I will just put one example from the Athena project. The basic thing we consider that anyone doing a BA in any field should know about is how to communicate in an accessible manner. So how to create an accessible document, for instance. If we learn that from the very beginning, it's so easy that we end up doing that. Okay, so apart from the more specialized in different fields, which would take longer to reply, I think that any BA student should be able to know what accessible communication is, should be able to produce a Word document, a text processing document, or at least should be able to know where to go to produce an accessible communication, could communicate in an accessible way with someone. Because this is part of many of our jobs these days. Oh, sorry, and please read the Athena recommendations. They are online, okay?
Well, and as soon as you promoted the Athena recommendations, I'm going to promote our own website, which is universaldesign.ie, universaldesign.ie, on which you'll actually find a customer communications toolkit, which actually gives great guidance on some of the things that Anna just referenced. That's shameless self-promotion for the organisation. That's okay. We've time for one more question.
One more question. I think there was a question on the on the left side.
Yeah, thank you. There's one question from one of the participants attending the event online. Does the EAA require streaming services to make their audiovisual media content accessible? Or is audiovisual media content still only directed by the Audiovisual Media Service Directive?
Who would like to take that one? Frankie, great.
Yes. Very briefly, one thing is a missed opportunity is that audiovisual media accessibility only that information the only obligation is to make accessible information, to make information accessible about which information is accessible. So let me give you one example. Video on-demand services, for example, such as Netflix or Disney Channel. They don't have to make all their material, the content, accessible, but if their material is accessible through maybe sign language interpretation in a picture-in-picture, then they have to make sure that that information is made available within Europe. That there is accessible information, but there's no obligation to make all content accessible, and that's a missed opportunity. That's a short comment. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Frankie. Unfortunately, to people in the audience here and online, and indeed to other panel members who might have wanted to come in, we have run out of time. Please join with me in thanking all our panelists, both in the room and online, for fantastic contributions this afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.